From serving locally to serving around the world, one person's story of living missionally is coming up next on this episode of Here at Home. Welcome to the Here at Home podcast, a podcast about the people here at McGregor, their stories, their ministry, and their love for Jesus. My name is Mark Bricker, your host for the Here at Home podcast. And joining me on today's episode is Mr. John Ruff. Welcome, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Is this your first time being on a podcast?
Yes.
Yeah. Usually it is. There are a few people that have been on one before, but usually most people, they answer, yes, this is their first one. But you listen to podcasts every once in a while, don't you?
All the time, related to business and McGregor's podcast.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. You're a podcast consumer. Awesome. Well, let's get started. As we always do with folks on here, to give them a chance to kind of tell us a little bit about them, their family, where they were born. Where were you born?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Isn't that where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is?
Yes. Yeah. All the people that have led us astray.
Yeah. And those wonderful Cleveland Browns. Did you grow up there? I mean, was that?
Yeah, exactly.
Grew up?
Born in a hospital there.
Yeah.
My family, they're all there.
All there.
Well, a lot of people have moved away now, but I was around cousins and everything, you know.
What got you out of Cleveland?
Well, I had never been outside of my little community. And I went to DeVry Institute of Technology in Chicago. And I lived and worked. I worked full-time. I went to school full-time. And I had never experienced a big city. I mean, Cleveland was a big city, but it wasn't like Chicago.
Not Chicago, right.
And where we grew up, cutting through an alley was always a shortcut. Or sitting in the back of the bus. It's really a bad idea in a big city.
Things change drastically.
It's really weird, you know.
Little John went to the big city.
I went to the big city. Yeah. I mean, I figured it out, but
yeah,
you know.
A little culture shock there. Tell us about your family, your wife.
I grew up in a Christian family. My mom's side were multi-generational Christians. And my dad's side of the family, his father got saved, I think, when my father was maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
And I remember my family was in the sign business. My dad worked with his father. My brothers are in it now. You know, it's like third gen. I'm the only one that wasn't involved with that. But I remember my dad saying, his father, my grandfather, was a pretty tough guy. And I remember my father talking about the change in his life that he noticed as a 11 year or however old he was. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
And so we grew up in that environment and went to church, you know, the whole thing. And but I really didn't. To me, they had a lot of rules, okay, and their rules were actually right. But it seemed like a path for no fun. Mm-hmm. That's what it seemed like to me. Yeah. And so I didn't get saved until I was 27 years old. But to back up a little bit, I met my wife, and my uncle ran the biggest catering company in Cleveland. And there was a connection. They had a bunch of, my wife is Greek, and they had a bunch of kids from the Greek church working there. And that's how I met my wife. Mm. And my wife was Greek Orthodox, and when I told my mother I was going to get married, she cried for 24 hours. Because
not tears of joy.
She wasn't mad, but it was so different.
Different what she had expected.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But then after 24 hours, my mom and dad said, "Look, we're just going to love this girl.
Yeah.
We're going to take this." And she literally spent more time at my parents' house. When we got married, I was halfway through an enlistment in the Navy. And she literally spent more time there than at her parents' house.
She won him over.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure who won who, you know. But it was awesome. You know, they came around her, you know, and, it was, I love my in-laws. Okay. My mother-in-law people talk about their mother-in-law. I hate my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was awesome. And
Yeah.
So it worked out. And my father-in-law, my mother-in-law got saved very early when our marriage took place. But her family, they came from a male-centric kind of family where the guys called all the shots, And so my father was a tough guy. He was a great guy. I learned a lot of stuff from him. He got saved when he was 95.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was great.
Where were you when you got married?
How old?
No, where were you?
Oh, in Ohio.
In Ohio.
I got married at the St. Constantine's in Helen Greek Orthodox Church.
Right.
I still don't know what happened. There's a lot of incense and going around, And I actually...
And it was before video, I'm sure.
And I hadn't been baptized. Okay, so in order to get married in the Greek Orthodox Church, you have to be baptized. And if you've seen the baptismal in the Greek Orthodox Church, it's for a baby. It's about that big around.
You weren't fitting.
They had me up in that thing.
Do we have pictures of this?
No. And there's olive oil there, and you're slipping all around. Your backside's hitting this. Yeah, right. So
I get the picture.
Yeah. No, you really don't get the picture.
I don't know if I want the picture.
No.
Well, let's transition while we're talking about baptism to you mentioned you got saved when you were 27.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and circumstances surrounding you coming to know Christ.
Well, my wife actually got saved before I did. And what I realized, I remember listening to, in a rental car, a Sirius satellite radio. You could pick 56, whatever it is. And I remember my grandmother railing in a kind way, against the popular culture of the time. Mm. And I said, I'm going to listen to some of these 60s music, and hear, listen to this. I said, you know what? My grandmother was right. If you did the stuff that those songs sang about, your life would be a disaster. Yeah. And a bunch of things had happened without going into it, but I'd done nothing crazy, but I just had said, they're right. They're exactly right. And so that's when I made a commitment. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much, because you said you grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
You had been taught, you had heard the truth, you knew the
Totally.
truth. So it was just at this point where the Holy Spirit just kind of opened your eyes to the truth of the gospel, right?
Well, we would go to camp and my friends would say, you need to go forward, And I had this internal urge, but I said to myself, why would I do this? Because they're no different than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been here at McGregor?
I think 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
So several years now. What are some of the roles that you have had in serving here at McGregor?
Well, the first thing we did, my wife and I are firm believers in being proactive in relationships, okay? You can't sit there and wait for somebody to come up and talk to you. You have to go.
Yeah.
So I was I worked with Lee Coleman with I did parking. These are some of the early things.
Yeah.
And I was involved with the men's group with Bill Camp, who discipled me. It was an enormous relationship. I can't even begin to tell you what that was like.
Yeah.
We went to Dairy Queen every Thursday night for 5 years. And then, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but then Bill said to us one day, Mike Witt was there, a bunch of people, who I've spent a lot of time with. He said, you guys, we did Experiencing God twice because we were kind of slow. We did it and then...
remedial.
Yeah. Let's do it again because we're not sure you got it. But anyway, so then Bill said, you guys know everything you need to do. Go lead something. Go do something.
Yeah.
And I think it makes him cringe when I say it. But I told him, I said, he kicked us out, basically. And
but it's probably what you needed.
Oh, it's totally what I needed. Yeah. Then we did, when we used to do Thanksgiving dinners, we did counseling. And we would talk to the people. And I remember some interesting things. We make a lot of decisions based on what we see, and we don't get below the surface. And I remember this lady came in, and for some reason I saw her car, and she was driving an Escalade. And I'm going, why is a person driving an Escalade coming to get a free turkey? But then when I talked to her, I realized that her husband lost his job. She lost her job. They were upside down, really having a tough time. It really made me pause about making a decision about just what you see.
Yeah.
Then I remember a lady who, a grandmother, was 80 years old, and her grandkids had abandoned their children, and this 80-year-old lady was raising 7, 8-year-old kids. And I'm going, wow, this is really something.
Yeah.
That was really formative. And then the other thing that happened was that here at McGregor, Dan Allen came up to me and he said, there's a guy here by the name of Terry Hart, and he has leukemia, and we need somebody to come alongside him. I didn't know Terry. I'd never seen him before. So I'm thinking, I'm going to get on my white horse and ride in there and save the day. And that guy, between Bill Camp and Terry Hart, I was discipled. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, Terry's was a dear friend of mine for so long, and I love that guy. I learned so much from him, and still to this day miss him.
I still talk to Virginia. She's up north now, but I talk to her.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Terry had a love for Jesus and lived it out like nobody I don't think I've ever known.
Terry would be sitting in church, and if he saw someone who he thought was a visitor, they'd be home at his house for dinner that day. Yep. He had every gift I can think of. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a package like that.
Yeah. We, after he passed away, sitting around thinking of just, how we might be able to honor him in an ongoing way, we came up with an award that we give every year to one of our adult life group teachers. It's called the Heart of Excellence Award, and it's spelled HART after him. Good, yeah. And so it is given in his honor every year. And it was neat because those first couple of years, Virginia was still here, and we were able to tell her who got the Heart of Excellence Award that year, and it meant a lot to her as well, I think.
And she's a sweet lady.
Yes, to see those people that. But it is, if you were to get that, and I know some people that don't know Terry that might receive that award might not understand fully what it means, but for those that do know Terry, that have received that, it meant a lot to them. And I know as the years pass, there'll be fewer people. And this is not about Terry, but what a mutual connection we have with one of the dearest brothers we'll probably ever know this side of eternity. All right, well, at the time of this recording, John, you are in the process of being recommended by the elder body to the congregation as a potential elder. And so part of the reason we're doing this podcast, not the only reason, but part of it is so that people can get to know you a little bit better, and they've had a chance to hear a little bit about your testimony, hear a little bit about your family and where you grew up. But now I'd like for you just to share a little bit about the call and the desire to be an elder, and what you think that can potentially be like for John Ruff moving forward if the congregation moves in the affirmative for that.
Someone asked me the question in a couple of meetings that I've had so far. They said, "Why are you pursuing this?" And I said, I didn't start pursuing this. Various people said to me, "We think you should do this. We're going to recommend your name." And then Wade and David Miller said, "Let's go to lunch." So I thought I was in trouble. And so they threw the idea out there. And so I said, well, let me, and there's another story about, that's not worth mentioning here, but so they gave me things to read and a lot of scripture, a great book on elders and what the Bible has to say about it. Mm-hmm. And as I read this, I said, when I view you as a group of elders, you guys are, and I know you're regular people, I know that, but I view you as the cream of the crop. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that. I mean, it's just, it's the way I look at it. So I started looking at the material that I was given, and I said to myself, well, you know what? I'm actually doing a lot of the shepherding already. It's kind of built into me. I know I told you the story about we get this attendance thing.
Yeah.
And so when I see, and I just did it here again this week, there was someone that hadn't been there for 3 months. Now, how can you be in a life group? And I co-teach a life group with 3 or 4 other guys. How can you miss someone for 90 days? So I get right on the phone, make contact with them. And I have some other stories like that. And it's just, if I get the urge to call someone, and it happens frequently, I do it immediately. Who said it? Blackaby said, delayed obedience is disobedience.
Yeah.
It's not my thought. That's what he said.
Well,
So,
I would agree with your thought on shepherding, because I have seen that in you and just your investment in people's lives. And like you said, you had shared with me back several months ago, we had that life group leader meeting, and we had handed out all the attendance records, and you just went home that day and made the call,
in the car.
Or in the car, and you didn't get home.
and what happened is that person actually said, I want to come to your house and meet with you.
Yeah.
Mary and I.
Yeah.
And it just comes out of me.
Yeah.
I'm a horrible administrator, but I'm a firefighter. Or, go blow this up, but then go back home.
Yeah. Go in there and
so that's kind of how. And so I said, maybe I should walk through this door. So that's an abbreviated version of how that happened. And when you have people that you respect say, have you considered this, have you considered that, and considered that, not just one, but a handful of people,
right,
to say you're wrong might be a mistake.
Yeah.
You just have to wait and see where it goes. And so I've been
exploring that and
baby steps,
moving forward with that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I want to take some time now to talk about something that I know you're extremely passionate about and that you've been involved in for quite a long time. And and I mentioned at the beginning about being involved in missions here in the United States as well as globally. And you've been a part of a specific mission organization for over 20 years. Is that?
It's been since 2004.
So almost. We're coming up on.
Yeah.
It'll be 20 years next year. Tell us a little bit about the mission organization and kind of their overarching goal, purpose that they have.
Can I give you a little background about how I got there?
Yeah, and it's CWE Missions, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, what happened, the church that I attended before I came to McGregor, we taught English as a second language to everything from regular people to professionals like doctors. And it was great. My wife and I were involved. We met Russian people, Brazilian people. It was really, really, really great. We became friends with the people that were there. So the leader said, we're going to Slovakia to a kids camp, and we want you to go and teach English with us to that camp. And I said, okay, I have 2 conditions. I'd love to go. And there were kids, okay? I said, I don't want to work with teenagers. And I'm not a curriculum. You provide our curriculum. So I got there and none of that was there. And I had these 17, 18-year-old kids. Well, what we didn't realize is that if you go to Europe and most parts of the world, now they've had English from when they were little kids, okay?
Yeah.
So they can read and they can write, but they can't have a conversation. And I have to say that I hated those kids in the first 3 days. It was terrible. They looked at me, I looked at them. We all wished we were someplace else. And then the pastor figured out the conversation thing. That's what we did. So we were in the countryside in Slovakia. Summer was beautiful. So we'd take walks and we would talk. And it was great. So they had a program, and all their relatives brought me presents and gifts. I said, you guys, if you knew what I was thinking 7 days ago, you'd have brought rotten lemons, It was really something else. But I knew that wasn't going to be for me. That wasn't the right thing. So I was sitting in a missions conference. A guy by the name of Paul Paleo, who's another guy that discipled me in a tremendous way, came and presented their ministry. And the bottom line is they started in the mid-'90s. And they went on a mission trip with their church and said, and Paul owns a huge electrical contracting company in Tampa. And he took business people that he knew. And they're going, they're not prepared. this is a waste of our time. We're going to start something. So they started, and what we do, it's all laymen. They only have 2 full-time people. Everybody else is volunteers. And what we do is we go to typically third world countries, although we've done a couple projects in Germany. And if they own the land, then we come in and completely pay for everything, including the labor, finish the project out. And but the goal is not the building. I've been on 80 projects, okay?
Wow.
I've gone, 4 times a year, almost every year, close to 80, between 70 and 80. Their goal is to send back the volunteers fired up for the local church. It's not to take the place of the local church. And it's just an unbelievable, I have relationships with people that I never would have met before. One of my friends in Michigan, I've spent a year of my life with him on projects.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Do that many projects.
Yeah, and we've done everything from, in Togo, we did probably all 8 of the elementary schools. We did at the Baptist Hospital in Palome in Togo, we did the maternity wing. We did a rescue school for girls in the Dominican. And I've always taken people with me. That's
another discipleship opportunity.
It's the greatest thing. Not all my grandkids, but a lot of them.
What's CWE stand for?
It used to be Construction for Worldwide Evangelism.
But now they do more than construction, right?
No, they do medical.
Yeah, I was looking on their website, medical and even some agricultural stuff.
They, on their board, they have some very, very capable people. And the doctor that runs they have 2 doctors that run that. One was the head of neurology at Tampa General Hospital, and the other guy ran infectious disease at Moffitt. These are checked out. I mean, people really know. So what they do, and I've actually been on, they do evangelism, they do medical, they do dental, and but they present the gospel. You can't go through the system. So I went to Bolivia one time with them.
Yeah.
And you present the gospel through an interpreter. So I've done that, the construction thing. I've met some unbelievable people. I've been everywhere, all kinds of places. And it's just, the impact is amazing.
Yeah.
So in the process of belonging to that, we have a devotional theme. And the devotional theme this year is road signs. Stop, one way, caution, and we do a spiritual thing. They have a committee that builds the curriculum for that. Yeah, and it's awesome. And I'm now, for 10 years, I've been a devotion, we call it facilitator. And at the end of every workday, we have a devotional theme, and people get saved. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then COVID came along, and COVID shut us down because at that point we had always done international, and we were in Paraguay just before COVID, and had to come back with the Peace Corps because they canceled all the commercial flights. So when that happened, we started to do domestic projects, kids camps almost exclusively. And one of the things that happened, one of my good friends, Mitchell Lee, was telling me about Whisper Mountain, which is near and dear to the people here at McGregor. Yeah. And I'm going, this is a perfect CWE thing. We had never built a frame building. A lot of things we had never done before. And in 2018 is when we first started talking about it. And then the COVID thing came along. And I want to say 2022, we built their first new building. And I was able to take people with me who are in my life group and people who have been supporting Marty, Paul, and Patty
for years.
Yeah. And it was one of the things that a guy like Marty, he has a construction background, and he's very exact in what he does. Well, and this is not to disparage other volunteer groups, but they bring, our volunteers are, the lead people are professionals, and then they bring general labor people, which are like myself. Right. And basically in 16 working days, we deliver a completed building.
I went to the website and looked at some of those pictures, and yeah, that's pretty nice what y'all did.
Yeah. We did a church in, I think in Nicaragua. I don't remember exactly where it was. And they did some demographic studies, and they said, this is where a church needs to go. First, I was there the last week. First Sunday, they had 160 people.
Wow.
Hearing the gospel.
First Sunday.
And they have, their theology is like Baptist. I mean, the Southern Baptist Church would be in agreement with
CWB's
how they look at things.
Statement of faith.
And these guys, I mean, when I went there, they're really big on, they're in your face about everything important.
Yeah.
You have accountability? You don't? That's crazy. You read your Bible every day? You're not? Are you nuts? Are you sharing the gospel on a regular basis? They basically, it sounds crazy, but I'd never shared I was 27 years old, never shared the gospel with a single person. So I'm 55 years old, and I show up there. And Paul, the leader, we're in a big group. He grabs me. He says, do it.
Pushes you right up.
Me like throwing a baby in the pool. And
sink or swim.
Yeah, that's the way they operated, and I needed that. I needed to be shoved into the program, So
well, it definitely, just looking around on their website, the focus is on the gospel. In fact, looks like their overarching purpose statement is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ through construction, medical, and agricultural missions. So can't get more clear than that.
These guys are the real deal.
Yeah.
And these guys are all the same board, pretty much has been together almost the entire 20 years. And a lot of these guys have had some personal tragedies in their lives, and it hasn't bent their faith at all,
You know, what's interesting is I do these podcasts as well as just talk to people here in our church, hearing people that are like yourself, that are involved, deep involved, not just, hey, I went on one trip with this group. No, I'm committed. I go every year or multiple times a year. There are a lot of people at McGregor. I mean, that we talk about living missionally here as one of our purpose statement, a part of our purpose statement. And we have more people than we probably realize that are doing that. And that's what I love about this podcast, because now other people are hearing and going, well, maybe I could get involved in something like that. I love construction, or medical missions. And so they can go to CWE-missions.org and see what's next, or look you up and talk to you and say, hey, when are you going? When's the next time you're going, John? I want to go with you, man. And so hopefully just listening to this might encourage someone either to go with you, or at least next time they see a mission trip advertised here at our church, hey, maybe I need to be a part of that. Yeah.
And you'll get more out of it than anything you do for those people.
That's always the way it is when you go on missions. Yeah. We've got 2 teams leaving next week, and I'm not going to say dates or anything, because who knows when this is coming out, but I just know in our time frame right now, we've got and this, certain times of the year, more, the summer and fall are when most of our teams go out, but there are a lot of other people like yourself that are involved in other missions as well, and all for the glory of God, all to get the gospel out. And just praise God for you, John, and your desire to want to do that. I know you're just being obedient.
It's not work for me. It's fun. My wife said, "Are you going to camp?"
Yeah,
that's what she said.
I look forward to every being on a mission trip every time. It's just so much. It's fun to serve in that capacity and be a part of what God's doing and to see lives changed. And
my oldest granddaughter, just a quick aside, I took her there when she was 14 or 15 years old. She's been with me 3 times. And we were in Haiti. We did a rescue home for girls in the Dominican. Okay. I forget. Oh, and we were in Bolivia. So these missionaries are awesome. So she's with me in Bolivia, and our trips they're hard work, actually. We have 4 tough days, not to discourage anybody, but it's not a vacation.
Right.
And then 1 free day. So my granddaughter comes up to me and she goes, the missionary, the lady, she wants to know if I can run around with her. I said, absolutely. So she spent 5 days with Sharon Weeb in Bolivia. They've been there for 30 years in a town that looked nothing like.
What an experience for your granddaughter. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was just great. And I could tell you story after story after story after story.
Wow.
It's great. So
We could be here all day.
Well, you don't.
But we're not.
No.
Trust me, we're not. In fact, I think this might be a good time to wrap up this episode of Here at Home. And John, thank you so much for being a part of our Here at Home podcast community and for being a part of the show today. And as we all folks are watching, listening, be praying for you and your involvement in missions, as well as potential for your involvement as a new potential elder here at McGregor. So thanks for joining us. And thank you, listeners, for being a part of the Here at Home community. We so appreciate you. And if you're listening and you haven't yet subscribed to this particular podcast, go ahead and do that right now. Go ahead and hit the like button as well, and the share it with your friends. Tell everybody about the Here at Home podcast. And again, thanks for listening. And we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks back here at home.